have a full right to choose demanding for a person kind of interest in the action. Therefore, a changing position or calling any kind of favors. What are you going to be calling position? Alright, let's get to the docu now. I want a 2 right now, 69. Can I go on a dinner in your way? And I would be giving you the coup de donkey or treatment, or otherwise we call it donkey a tornado. Do you like such something? Alright, here it is. Well, I got really good what talking about it. I really enjoy giving you the very good time. Well, I have asked a case. Well, what is your consideration? The consideration of female orcas instead of the physical interest of a person. Alright. Alright, skipping around. And somebody gonna give it an all face. And they know the best way to is ignore for somebody else. Alright. But there come a moment when you cannot anymore to just ignore it, let it go around. But there will be some kind of action. Alright, let's take it up out of the question. When I got up a revelation, here you go. Well, the question, and there's an appropriate response here. We do the kind of some kind of a wave. Well, that's a wave. And we have a hurricane wave. What you will clap masaparo masigeno la macora. Dicera cora sutibala samosque padima. Y dice que da puca la pora sama siento la ma. E cuenta a zapara mantico y a zapatiño a la sacara manga. Eso es la cora quiendo. Eso de la cora siento la samagate. E cuenta la siento. Y cuela la cordama seco de esa comatiño. Vuela fortema, si cuela va de sale que la pola. Agua que sale que para cada pecué. Que sale flat, dice que sale te sale flat, to the shadow better safe. Tu sabe cada fome, tu de queda para si tu queda sabe cada tigo essa tapa sabe que de cada se. Água essa má. Recomeça tiro, é ser o ciguera, decido cada se suelta pequena, a mais que o eda seco, do eda seco guerra, a queda cada seco, essa tecana, e o efa tiro efa, tu será cora cama, a you essa que se caro marcar tu, se aconteciando aqui. Si cuerpo pa monsieur, aromargato, And the world will take myself to April Kevin. They would be refusing any kind of counteraction. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we guys gotta hurry up enough. Just around, you guys gotta be a more specific kind of a thing what you will be allowing things to happen. Alright, they happy in themselves to pin. One thing is coming by a poker. I can most able to the person. Okay, you can see that more they come demanding, more hurricanes, and therefore unless there is any interest to keep an eye on the wave. What it will taste? You're getting Castro 6 is better right now to pay responding reason number 1 because it is similarly that the biggest speaker is kind of faker and it was it just means that those who have so much already are obviously just gonna get more with the top wave. Well, if unless there's some kind of a thing going to stop this kind of cycle with a picker. But already we can say that it's a better responding getting female content now. And it's seemingly, it's a certain nature in every capable process. That is something I believe. What I always like to ask you to wave. What is an inevitability? Guys, anybody, whoever interact here, why you guys are inevitable? I pray for wrap out of your organism. Guys, can you stop to be what you are and instead be something else what you shouldn't? Are you guys an inevitable result? Are you guys are hard determined? Going for do everything in this section. Alright, I could have been hold this kind of thing out. Self-control. Meanwhile, let's talk about the more occasions. Sexual encounters case. Well, you guys want to see, I see the paper. Therefore, females, do you have a preference, guys? Is there some minimum to high requirement? high requirement? Is there some maximum high requirement? Is the maximum endowment of penile area requirement genitalia cured? Is this a maximum or minimum requirements? Or is there something about the maximum of the weight? Or the minimum weight? Or about the mass tone? What about any diseases? Contagious diseases, tuberculosis, any kind of contagious diseases, skin diseases, pneumatic diseases, lung, therefore ventricular. What about the case? And of course, with this kind of occupation, STDs, you can have fighting. Alright, you can recover the rest, but there is much more around here, Razor. So you all prefer to getting the very safe, very repetitive to receive the treatment. You guys are very paper. Even are not going to ever get it. I heard when they say they get boring very easily. Boring is support that. So what is a boring? If it's boring, everything what it involves any physical involvements, you have to be using in prayer. But then, come not to develop two ideas. What is just a grave? So just nobody can get, and that's what they have been now telling about the nice and gentlemen. And getting a meeting those the few requirements. Is it just enough a nice guy? Is it just enough gentlemen? What it does why? Let's talk about define. Gentlemen, the person are understand a female quality they needs. The female are interesting to themselves that they are physically very well aware. So we become up the most important thing the females that they are held. You better start at the held as held as possible when they stop in case everything period that is enjoying racer. Therefore they do not necessarily want to pain. In cases want to pain, but nothing painful it is. They want to be too much at pleasure and satisfaction in every motion, and therefore they will. But what are those cases seconds? There is much more for the proper behavior. The way to talk it. Therefore no swearing, no profanity words, and no any kind of offending. One of the things offending behavior is not just the word talking, it's to speak, but any kind of body language. Association to varieties, exactly approach, no nervousness, and no any kind of angriness. Therefore, the client never should be angry, nervous, but PDS, and moderately serious, but therefore, however, as normal as possible. Therefore, the person should be as his own person, but if the person would be understood, the person could be as an average type of a proper normal behavior as possible. What is special even this kind of settings, and that's very interesting. You're not just going to define where what the person is here applying. Is it can access the female vagina genitalia? So the getting in the penis inside here to the female vagina. Is it attention to all the worth of the money? It's just getting the female content, the physical as a flesh, the same connotation against seeing it around and expecting it. But then again, the service provider able to themselves to reversing any auction. And here we got it in more the wave. Well, as you can have seen, the things are really coming that way of wave. Well, education and surprisingly out of expectation. Well, guys, la mona sta cuenta de tu situ caminate, seven pay really powerful case of a coast of the go PDP poco we have. Ay, poca 12, boom. Ay, pa mangora puenta los caños de fer kumesa. And it's all are expected to do all things gonna be as normal as possible. So what they enjoy, of course, a clamoring status. They are going for as much status as possible. You want it to female? Well, let's go to with one point. About the voice, speaking in a pattern and a tempo. Simple thing, as the speeds are there is very complicated when it comes into just the cloud. The more unfortunate the observation, the detail about when it comes into the volume basin, you're getting a little bit less volume, and less volume, and less volume. Alright, the results of the English guys show that the female would be abnormal. So therefore 55 to 60 is the normal 95% of the congregation, and 95 would be here, meaning that the most 95 will be preferring the voice will be somewhere around here. You're getting closer cut, irritation. So the first contact here, there would be immediately to pick up to any kind of age, physically using all their senses. Their listening capacity, and nose, ability to pick in any kind of smells and stinks and odoral, but also the physical body, to the sensory. Also, importantly, of course, the vision. They're able to see what the client might look like. They all hope the client might be some average 5 to 10% the taller that they are. Also to have it to somehow better muscular and as healthy body as possible. They hope it therefore the client is therefore to make also to sure it is as healthy as they are. And therefore they are happy the client is going to for a single every respect and everything you make it a perfect. So therefore they expect some kind of a perfect meetings. Alright, well, that's very perfect. Even though those are necessary exits here, they have been all the common line the same, all of the together. So to get a good given access, it's going to take not just only a lot of work and a lot of respectful, but a lot of knowledge. What a way. Alright, we have a talk about a lot of cases, this kind of discussion, what it takes, case. It's got another case of back to the point to the table, that do we ever spent more energy, time and thought thinking about getting such a getting such a action than it would we have somebody else in back of history? Do we ever use more energy and more all kind of utility to simply able to getting sent when somebody else have to get it more easier? As we got a case, what takes the most easiest way? Alright, here we have it, babe. We are going to get an access as a personally to the maximum utility, to the maximum information database on everything. Alright, what you gotta do to turn around to be able to understand much more that you are even other bugs. Alright, you have seen override some specific things, very basic things, and so, but there is so much more out there. And obviously because there is so much more, you should expecting to be getting even more knowledge. You should be able to get it yourself right now to handles of other channels. So increasing more time to attention, the basic person able itself to condition, to knowledge, indoctrinate every possible varieties what it takes the female understanding to getting a completely of the overhaul, how they behave, because the American property they always are going to increase the expectation, increase the awareness, increase every positive allocation varieties themselves would be therefore the par would be always getting higher. That would be saying the par what was current years in such a different location have people increase it, and that would mean the competition is always meaning that the more and more is demanding for the paper to able to the pulling and to the simple match that to the necessity requirements, qualifications, and so on. So it takes enormous work and work and work. And what do I have a paper? I have been trying myself to pay for enormously for putting all of that for archive and justice, and now it all has become a down. Why should I be myself? Is this the word I love it is to happen? And the second thing, should I myself be able to be very angry about this, or should I just let it go? Should I see myself as just to be accepting all of things, whatever happened here, and I shouldn't go back anywhere more, and well, I will just start loving myself not to have a control anything. I just start loving all the normals to have a control. To a normal order, the society, laws, and rules have a control over this. And the person itself here, to simply keep up, and it's just simply comfort. Is it always going to comfort? So, why should I pay after all any money? This is a free for your coming. Alright, you talk about the business adventure. Here it is. Even though there is rules, we do not need to be obey on them. We can broke some, and we try to come into any particular way to not get caught. Here it is one thing. It's as simple to able yourself. And now is just the time to thinking about replacing the business, because they have a risk agency. They are independent and do advertising, independent advertising of the services. In the same token, we would be able to open a website which we are able to access to the same shop, but at a cheaper price. Therefore, having more requirements, as it is known as a competition, we are able to replace the same ratio to just doing it. And what it takes, first it is just to overhaul how this business work, and a copy paste. Alright, let's read the website. How much they have. And therefore looking for a market. What economics is. How many visitors here are coming as? What is the demand for it? Such a thing. You always go to looking for a demand. Even if there might be no demand, you're able to hover to some or other wizard to able to pull it off. Alright, this is all just the one thing in common. It will be the male's desire, or even some kind of a sexual desire for encounters for paid funds. And for that simple reason, all of those are expecting, as much as anything is, we are always depending of the people willing to do such a thing. Alright, are we guys going to now to pay for replacing? Well, education to pay. You know, he makes the pay with. Alright, time to win an end.